Good morning. And I say that sincerely. It is a good morning. I plant that in the seed of spirit, and so it is. Today I know there is only one spirit, one God, one love, one whole thing in which I am a part, of which I am a part. I keep reminding myself I am of it, not separate from it. The thing that creates. We can call it God, we can call it spirit, we can call it whatever we want. We can call it Jose. It doesn't matter because it's still one thing. And that one thing is all, everything. There's no spot where this is not. There's no spot in me that is outside that one. There is no spot in me that is outside of the good, the love, the creativity, the prosperity, the wholeness that is spirit. Therefore, I am those things too. Therefore, we are all those things too. We need go no further than our own hearts to know this. Breathe. Today's energy is so high and beautiful and juicy and powerful. The way we gather in this community, it's all about that. It's all about that energy that comes straight out of the ground and out of the sky and into all of us. We gather each week in this space to feel that. And we put it out there into the universe where there is no time or space. So even if people aren't here in this space now, that energy reaches. Today's gathering is whole and complete, just as it is. But it reverberates like a pebble in the lake out. Sending that good farther and farther, unendingly sending that good out. And what happens is I feel it returning. So I consciously choose to notice how it feels, to feel that cycle of good going out and good coming in. And I say yes to it, and I welcome it, and I let it go into the law. It's already happening. I'm just saying, yep, that. And I release it, knowing it's still happening. I'm not holding on. It is good, and so it is.
So our talk today, as I mentioned, is and as the slides already showed, is listening with heart. And so rather than me standing up there, which kind of engages the intellect, and look at some guy standing up preaching, I'm going to just sit here and chat. I won't say that I'll do that next Sunday, but that's what we're going to do today. Oops. And so, oh, right. I love these socks. These are the Tree of Life illustration from Frank Lloyd Wright, the architect Frank Lloyd Wright, whose work I love. So we've been working this whole year so far on 12 agreements, the revolutionary agreements from that book. And so the first set, and they're broken out into 3 agreements, which nicely lands for one a month, right? one group a month. And so the last month's group was on truth, capital T, truth. And it's about finding our truth, speaking our truth, looking within when we get bump up against. How many of you, when you're living authentically, bump up against things, right? Or other people bump up against you and kind of trigger you, right? And so it's looking within. The agreement was when I'm triggered or when I agree to look within when I'm upset. And then the fourth one, the one we did last week, is also noticing what's working and what's not working about my truth. What is authentic, what isn't really me, and so having that discernment. So this month we move into a set of agreements that are about acceptance. Acceptance. So last month was kind of focused on me. I don't mean me personally, I mean us, my. This one is kind of about looking at acknowledging the differences and celebrating the differences and fully experiencing and enjoying the glorious diversity of everybody, right? Have you noticed that there's people who are not like you? Oh, yeah, thank God. And I go back to The Matrix, where I think it was the last of the three main Matrix movies, where Agent Smith replicates himself. Himself is just more of me, 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 me. Kind of the classic narcissistic, thing. Yes, don't take that, or do take that. So today we're looking at listening from the heart. We move into speaking our truth and listening. Winston Churchill said, courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and listen. And so this agreement is about applying the golden rule to listening to others as you would have them listen to you. Wow, what a concept. How many of you love to be listened to when you're speaking? Yeah, sometimes. One of my past wives one time was saying something. I said something back to her, repeated or something like that. She looks at me in shock and she goes, "You were listening to me?" One of her complaints about her previous husband was that he never listened to her. One of her complaints about me was that I did listen to her. So anyway, sometimes you just can't win. Years ago, several decades ago, I had a friend, and she called me up one day, and she was going through a rough patch in her life, and she started talking, and I did the typical male thing, right? I wanted to solve her problems. And I was a graduate of personal growth seminars. I hadn't yet discovered religious science, but I knew all the stuff, right? And so I'm sitting there trying to help her out, right? And saying things. And finally she just yells through the phone. We were good enough friends, she knew that she could do this. Yells through the phone at me. She goes, "Will you stop talking and just listen? I just want you to listen." I kind of held the phone away from my ear. And all of a sudden it's just like this whole weight lifted off of me. I didn't have to solve her problems. All I had to do was listen. Oh my God, what a concept. So Stephen Covey tells us that most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. And so usually we're listening with one of three ways of listening. I'm listening to prove that I'm right and you're wrong, to argue with you, debate with you. The second way we oftentimes listen is that I remember a time when that happened to me. So I'm going to share my story over on top of your story, right? I'm guilty of that. Which still, by the way, makes it about me instead of about you. And then the third one is, what can I do to help? Like I did with my friend, which is basically saying, using what they're saying as a springboard to demonstrate how superior I am, how smart I am, how, as she says in the book, to demonstrate my intelligence, my superiority, and my ability to be the all-knowing protector supreme. Why do you think I'm a minister? Which communicates, by the way, that I think they're not enough to be able to deal with it themselves. Again, instead of just listening and just being with somebody. Listening with my heart literally involves just listening. Breathe. It's so easy. Or is it? I have to say that I appreciated the way that you two did some of our regular songs this morning at a little slower pace. The heart operates at a slower pace and listens at a slower pace so we can start to feel. What makes truly listening with the heart difficult is that our Western culture has for centuries taught us to experience life through the intellect. Yes? What do you think? What do you see? The eyes are connected directly to the brain. We learn to process life through the left brain, which is excellent at quickly distinguishing surface differences, but not so great at the big picture. Here's a left brain word for you, neuroanatomist, brain scientist, okay? I always know when we're engaged in left brain stuff when the words are so big that a 5 or 8-year-old can't understand what they mean, and you have to explain, right? So brain scientist. Her name is Jill Bolte Taylor. She wrote a book called Whole Brain Living, which is a fabulous book. She had a stroke back in 1996, and because she was a brain scientist, could observe as it was happening what was going on with her brain. And it was a very intense experience. And she said that I learned that the energetic flow of all mass moves so slowly that it cannot be detected by our left brain. As long as the left brain is focused at the level of solid things and is preoccupied with detecting the details that allow us to differentiate one thing from another, it cannot focus on the component pixels that make up those things. We would call that the wholeness, right? It cannot focus on the wholeness. In other words, our left brain focuses on the details that distinguish one thing from another thing, such as trees, while our right brain focuses on the pixels that have no distinguishing characteristics and move as one, the forest, as part of the cosmic flow. And I love that. A brain scientist is talking about the cosmic flow, right? And the perception of that. But because of our conditioning, listening with the heart is not as familiar or habitual to us as listening to problem solve, argue, or reply. You know, at school we were trained and we were rewarded for being good at solving problems, yes? You know, what's the question? What's the answer? I remember when I went through practitioner studies, the first year of practitioner studies, I was in with a group of almost 30 people, of which 3 of us were extroverts and the other 20-something were introverts, some of them extreme introverts. And some of us are calling. We have God calling to us. Breathe. And I had to learn after a while, because at the start of the class, whenever the instructor would ask for an answer, hand up. I've been in science of mind by that time for about 10 or 12 years. You know, I knew all the answers. I was the Hermione Granger of our class, okay, if you're familiar with Harry Potter, you know. And so what I had to learn was to slow down and wait for the introverts to go first, because then I would hear something deeper than just my answer. And usually if I would answer first, then later on they would start to answer, I'd sit there and go, oh. And I feel sort of sometimes a little bit stupid about the shallowness of the answer I just given. Oh, it was right. But it wasn't as deep as it could have been. And practitioner is about going deep. So we're rewarded for being good problem solvers, for having the right answers, and ideally having them first. Problem solving is our tool for experiencing life, is what we're trained. And, you know, there's that old adage that if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Okay? And so we go through life as seeing life as a bunch of problems to be solved. And we hammer them into place. What's happening in the world right now, in our country right now, is a problem to be solved by hammering it. We've been doing that for hundreds of years. Actually, the people of the world have been doing that for thousands of years. If it's a problem, don't try to understand it. Get rid of it. Get it out of here. We can even bring this pattern into our spiritual life, having to do it right or get it right. Breathe. We have to learn what experiencing from the heart feels like. Mariam Hasna said, emotional intelligence is about so much more than recognizing, naming, honoring, feeling, and expressing your authentic emotions. It also consists of alchemizing and transmuting them, releasing the heart wall. I love that phrase, releasing the heart wall, healing the emotional body, and developing emotional regulation skills. Being able to just name our emotions and kind of be aware of them. I once was, a couple of years ago, was walking with a friend of mine who's sitting in the room at a retreat center. And she was naming the trees and the plants we were looking at and having a good time doing that. And eventually came to this tree that she looked at it and said, I don't know what the name of this tree is. And I said, it's just a tree. Can we just experiencing it as a tree? And again, it took a load off of the person having to name everything. You know, our left brain wants to name everything. We've got to know what it is and how. You know, me, when I'm out in the forest, I look and say, oh, there's a green thing. Oh, there's another green thing with a different shape. Oh, there's a green thing with some yellow flowers. Oh, there's a green thing with some purple flowers. I don't really give a, about what the name of the thing is. It's just, it's life. It's nature. And so we have to learn to experience what the heart feels like in order to listen from the heart. So what I'd like to do is invite us to spend a few minutes experiencing life through our heart. Are you good with that? We're going to do a little guided meditation. So I'm going to invite you to take a breath. Whatever's going fast within you, let it slow down. And allow your breath to move from your head to your heart area. You might even put your hand on your heart area. Allow yourself to breathe into that area. Some other interesting places to breathe into are what the Chinese call the Dantian, which is about 3 finger widths below the navel. Or your root chakra at the base of the spine. Or your feet on the ground where it connects with the earth. Let your breath move to something other than your head. We're going to spend a couple of minutes just slowly breathing into our hearts or somewhere lower down. Notice if your mind is worrying about doing this right. And let that go. Come back to your heart. And take one more deep breath. Feel what that feels like to be in that slower, gentler place. The heart directly connects with our intuition, with our soul. Instead of our brain. When you're ready and feel comfortable, gently open your eyes and be fully present back in the room. Generative listening is the art of developing deeper silences in yourself. Developing deeper silences within yourself. So you can slow your mind's hearing to your ear's natural speed and hear beneath the words to their meaning. One of the most powerful ways we can just listen to another person is to just listen and then ask, how can I support you, if that's appropriate? And oftentimes people may say, I just needed you to listen. I just needed to take this off of my shoulders. Let the other person guide you to what they truly need, rather than trying to figure it out and solve the problem. And I don't want to put down problem solving, because there's times that problem solving is very helpful. When my friend Craig here is flying a commercial airliner, I don't want him to be in that complete listening with the heart. Let's just move real slow. Because I might be getting on the plane to fly to Reno for a conference, and he might say, my heart just says, let's go to Hawaii today. And while that would be a wonderful thing in one way, it wouldn't get me to the conference that I wanted to be at. So there's a place for problem solving. It's just that our culture is so locked into that's the only way. And so finding a balance in that left brain, right brain, that heart-brain continuum. Years ago, the first religious science church that I joined, I found myself on the board within about 6 months, and we did a little board retreat and had an exercise during that retreat. There was 4 of us on the board, one of whom was the minister. And we were given an assignment by the facilitator to solve a problem. And there was 25 cards that had all the information we needed to resolve the problem. And we had 25 minutes to do so. And so we each they divided the cards up among the 4 of us. And so I immediately said, well, the obvious thing is let's get all the cards on the ground here in front of us and start to go through them. And the other two of the other people on the board said yes. And the minister said, no, I'm going to keep mine and try and solve it myself. Had I been paying attention to the extreme controlling nature of that person, I would have vacated that board immediately. But I didn't. So we took the 3/4 of the information we had and started working with it, and about 10 minutes into it, I went, the answer is this. And then one of the other people said, I think I see that also. And another person said, I don't see it, but I trust you. I get that you know that that's the answer and you're clear about it. And then the minister said, I don't get it. And so then we spent another 15 minutes and talked ourselves into a different answer that turned out to be the wrong answer. And the facilitator afterwards said the answer that we came up with in 10 minutes was the correct answer. And he pulled me aside afterwards and he said, you solved that faster than anybody I've ever seen solve it in the times that I facilitated this. And then I watched you give your power away to the person in charge. He said, I encourage you to stand in your own power and to trust your own intuition. And so I'll pass that on to you. Stand in your own power and trust your own intuition. If you're listening with your heart, you can hear oftentimes knowledge that's not available with just the surface of the words. And oftentimes all people want is to be listened to. So this week I'm going to invite you to do two things. Number one, spend time meditating into your heart space like we just did. Spend some time just feeling what that's like. And when I say spend some time, maybe a little more time than you normally meditate, because it takes sometimes a little longer to get into that. People, when they do a meditation, talk about the monkey mind that's rapidly, all their thoughts, and they're trying to get rid of the thoughts. And it's like, no, it's not about getting rid of the thoughts. It's finding someplace else to bring your attention to that isn't spewing out a bunch of thoughts all the time. And so when you move into the heart, when you move into the Donqian, when you move into the core chakra, the root chakra, it'll take you somewhere different. It'll take your energy somewhere different. So that's the first one, spend time meditating in your heart space. Then the second one is pay attention when you're listening to somebody else. How are you listening to them? You may notice, because so many of us are conditioned in a certain way to listen to them in a certain way, you may have to catch yourself and back out of it and say, let me just listen from my heart. Let me just listen to and be with this person. Will you play with that this week? Okay. Marion Head, who's the author of the Revolutionary Agreement, says, the simple act of listening with my heart opens my heart to experience empathy and expands my capacity for non-judgment. Peace on earth does begin at home. We see all that's happening around us, and we need peace on earth. And it doesn't happen out there. It's not going to happen through demonstrations. It's not going to happen through violence. It's not going to happen through that. It's going to happen by us being peaceful and then living from and as that peace into the world. When we're in our hearts, we don't discriminate against somebody else because they're not like us. We look at them and say, ooh, you're not like me. Tell me more. We open to curiosity. We open to learning. And so we stop labeling people as this or that or the other. We're celebrating African American history this month because so many of us, especially my generation and older, grew up having no clue what African American history in the United States is. We were lied to, we were omitted, and it's time to find out that there is this whole other culture that is not harmful or dangerous to us, that needs to be recognized, loved, and accepted just like we would want to be if we were a minority culture somewhere else. And so as we experience this month, and later in the month we have a wonderful guest speaker who's going to share stuff with us on Saturday afternoon, the 21st, and Neomosha has brought her artwork in and that. And so as we listen to that, as we experience that, as we do so from our heart and experience it, and we recognize the pain that can be embodied from a culture that has been minimized and put down and persecuted for hundreds of years in this country, and just be with it. I invite us to live that way. We have an affirmation. If you'll say this with me. I agree to listen with my heart. One more time. I agree to listen with my heart. I have one other quote before you guys start. This comes from Virginia Woolf, who said, whatever happens, stay alive. Don't die before you're dead. Don't lose yourself. Don't lose hope. Don't lose direction. Stay alive with yourself, with every cell of your body, with every fiber of your skin. Stay alive. Learn, study, think, read, build, invent, create, speak, write, dream, design. Stay alive. Stay alive inside you. Stay alive also outside you. Fill yourself with colors of the world. Fill yourself with peace. Fill yourself with hope. Stay alive with joy. There's only one thing you should not waste in life, and that is life itself. Thank you.